But so Wilfred Bion was most people have never heard of him. It's like you got to be pretty interested in psychoanalysis, Freudian psychoanalysis, to know who the hell he is. He was an utterly brilliant man, and he was born in India, and he English parents, and then I think he studied at Oxford, but he became one of the truly great post-Freudian psychoanalysts, and actually came eventually from London and practiced in Los Angeles for a while. But he had that Indian background, so that I always loved that, so that it was kind of merged with of course, nothing can be more Western than psychoanalysis. I mean, literally. I mean, it is like, if you wanted to think of something that is just almost relentlessly Western as opposed to Eastern, I would come up with, that psychoanalysis. But anyway, Bion seemed to be totally present. And one of his students, one of his analysants, said that when he would say something in a session to you, right, and he might say something that's like really just brilliant, right? So you're just sitting there and say, "Well, would you repeat that, sir?" And he always said, "Well, no." He says, "I can't repeat anything." But he says, "If it comes up again, so, and he wouldn't repeat anything. So he gave a talk one time in Los Angeles, and he stood up and he said, "I can't wait to see what I'm going to say." Right? And so it's a wonderful, I mean, to have that attitude, right? To really be so trusting of the spontaneity of now, to be trusting of the unconscious, which I think it is, that you just say, okay, so well, that'll be very interesting. Wonder what I'll end up saying. He said one of the most brilliant things, which I never ever forgot as a therapist, and this was the little thing that would have been appropriate in some ways to have said during one of the as a response to something that was mentioned in Spirit Rock. But well, I'll share that. Someone was talking about I think she is a therapist, and she was expressing in her group interview how painful it is because she so wants to help people, and she wants to help nurture them along. She wants to really, she sees them sort of like struggling or perhaps in pain, whatever. And she was somewhat distressed. And so then I thought of Bion, and so I didn't say this, but I'll share it with you all, because the truth is, if you made this sort of your mantra for the rest of the evening and tomorrow, I can't think of a better one. He said a true therapist has the ability to suspend memory and desire. Memory and desire. So if I'm a therapist and I am, think about that. So if I'm your therapist and you come to me, or you're a therapist, or you're the therapist and someone comes to you, and what does it mean that you suspend memory? It means that you're absolutely fresh in that moment. You're not sitting there with what they said last week, right? You're not dwelling on that or what happened last week or what happened yesterday. You're present to whatever comes up in this moment without any agenda, or as we say in Tennessee, without a dog in the hunt, which I love. So that would be suspending memory. And so what would be suspending desire? What I said earlier about letting go of this need to feel good during the retreat? Yes? Suspending desire would mean letting go of this desire to heal somebody, as if you could in the first place, right? But letting go of that desire that for you to take someone where you think they need to go, as opposed to trusting totally in the moment and trusting them and trusting. I mean, it's like, in other words, it's almost like it's to ask yourself the question over and over, but if joking or not, it really is almost like a koan. I mean, what does that mean for me to be suspending memory and desire, right? This moment, or as I go through this evening, as I'm walking, doing walking meditation and going to my room or whatever, but to suspend memory, of course, is letting go of what happened at home this morning what happened to your children last night, or your parents, or your lover, or your friend, letting go of the memory. Just letting it go. I mean, I can tell you one thing, it's easier said than done, right? Because it's an automatic, the mind, it's like a Rolodex. I will wake up in the morning sometimes and this thought will come through, oh, you're supposed to meet so-and-so at 10. And it just astonishes me. I think, oh my God, how does that happen? I mean, how does that happen, right? I mean, you got to do this, you got to do this. I mean, if you didn't have the thought, you wouldn't meet someone at 10 a.m. So the mind is like, it's almost like this Rolodex that naturally functions. And so suspending that is maybe impossible at first, but to watch it and to let it go and to not be involved in it. So I'm going to read a poem and make that a little bit of the theme for this evening. I've done this, I love this metaphor. The idea of leaving home. That's a koan too. How many of us have left home? It's an enormous, psychologically speaking, it's an enormous accomplishment. And I'm a little bit reticent here. Because it's hard. It's hard, really. The implications of it are hard. And there are some of you who are mothers here. Mothers are always a problem. I find mothers to be the most, recalcitrant and obdurate people in the world. I'm not going to let go of my child. Are you kidding me? Right? And so, it makes total sense. And I understand it deeply. But, leaving home certainly implies, on a profoundly psychological level, that you're no longer a child. And on a profoundly psychological level, it doesn't mean that there's not a child within. Because if there's individuation, that has happened inside, there is a child that we take care of from an adult position. But so to me, living home, number one, means that you are a child. You don't have, you're not a child, you are an adult with a child. And so I'm going to read, first of all, this is one of my favorite poems. This is a poem by David White. And it's one of the most extraordinary stories of living home that we know of. And he calls this poem the statue of Buddha. I'm not going to go into the story. I'm so tired of just that story about him. I think that we reify these people, Buddha and Jesus and all these people, and then we talk about them forever, right? We've been talking about these people for 2,000, 3,000 years, and maybe it's time for us to find someone else new to talk about. And I'm a candidate, right? I'm going to see if I can manifest like an aura before we leave. Okay, so this is a beautiful poem. Right? Your hands move in the gesture of welcome. Maybe that's what it looked like. Your lips in the gesture of praise. You believed in your own sound. And so everything you said is still being spoken. You believed in your own sound. And so everything that you said is still being spoken. In that first step away from home, I love that first part of that sentence. In that first step away from home, you came so far and all alone. Kids, you can't leave home with anybody. You don't do that with a companion. You leave home and you are with yourself alone. Faithful to all things as you met them, until finally everything bowed to you and everything spoke to you in its own voice. It did that because, of course, it was utterly safe, right? It was utterly safe to be what it was in the presence of this person. You were the child whose first step encompassed the four directions. You said, heaven above, earth below, I alone am sacred. Creation means finding the new world in that first fierce step with no thought of return. That's leaving home, right? It's a psychological thing. It's not a physical thing. You could move 3,000 miles away from parents that get on your nerves, right? Or you could never speak to your sister again as long as she lived. I don't think there's a family almost on earth that does not have some fracture like that. It's amazing, right? My brother lives in a 55 plus community in Florida, and he will call me on the phone and he'll say, I don't get it. And I'll say, what do you mean? He says, these people, I'll ask them, about their children, and say, well, I haven't heard from them in 20 years, right? And he says, he just finds that amazing. But, so that's not leaving home. Being separate, psychologically disconnected from someone that who is painful or whatever, difficult, that's not leaving home. Leaving home is something utterly different. And the reason why I love doing this opportunity to talk about this is because too often, I don't know how to put this into words. There's a psychological component to what we're doing, and it's often overlooked. The East, we can still get into this business of no self, right? There's no self and emptiness, and all of which has absolutely its place and is correct. But then we are sometimes leaving behind something that is intrinsic to our Western culture and to who we are, and so I just want to invite you to have this idea or this thought that leaving home is just profound. It's something about being truly at home with yourself, with no need for anyone, no need for a partner, no need for a child to cling to for the rest of its precious life. Lord, or a parent, That doesn't mean, has nothing to do with loving a child or a parent, right? Has nothing to do with relationship. Krishnamurti would say over and over, that relationship begins from utter okayness within yourself, right? Because then you're available. You have you to be in relationship to another human being, a child or a parent or a friend. But so to some extent, we're so fearful of being alone. I remember, he's not here so I can get away with it, but I remember the very first retreat we ever did at Long Beach Meditation. It was wonderful. We did it way up in someone's unbelievably beautiful home. She had an indoor swimming pool. And it was overlooking the whole thing overlooked the Sierras. But anyway, he told the story they were driving from Long Beach all the way up to this end, and so someone said, "Well, have you ever been silent for a weekend?" And so then everyone in the car said, "Silent? Who said we were going to be silent?" So they said, "Didn't you know we're in silence all weekend?" I think the whole car just shuddered like that. So anyway, but he said, so he confessed this during the talking circle, right? He said, I couldn't do that. He said, so he went to the bathroom with a pillow and called his wife, and we talked every night. I'm doing all right. He's a grown-up person, right? And he's a wonderful person. I love him a lot. But he simply could not tolerate that alone. He couldn't tolerate it. He had to connect to her. And so to some extent, that goes back to what I said today, talking about creating this container, this space where you're just with yourself, and again, remembering the brilliance of the Dogen statement of that this is about taking that backward step, and that backward step is there's one great philosopher who has this expression, putting the world in brackets, and I'm going to talk about that tomorrow. But that's exactly the backward step, right? I mean, like you're stepping back away from that external, all of that stuff, every bit of it, and you're stepping back from it, and you're daring to be to tolerate. Something that we are terrified of, I think. It's really possible. I didn't understand this for a long time. What is taught when people talk about the existential fear. I didn't understand I didn't even understand what that word existential meant. I don't think I still do. But Jung said that he never worked with anyone over 40 who eventually didn't come to an absolute terror of death. He said he didn't work for anyone. He said that was always at the bottom of it. That at the bottom of it was this absolute terror of death. And so that's getting at that thing about aloneness, right? That thing about being alone. Because if you are absolutely falling or stepping back into that space of aloneness, I think probably you have to start looking at something, a little bit unsettling about, the fact that, this is not like an ongoing situation here. It's like, so then I'm going to read this. This is just wonderful. You don't have to bear with me. Oh, it's right there. See, these are miracles. This is a Japanese monk was complaining about people in the laity. He was talking about how they're not serious, and so he wrote this little poem. So I mean, it's not a poem the way it sounds here, but in Japanese it probably rhymed. I remember worked so hard not to be smart alecky. This is just wonderful. She'd like to hear the sermon, but she also wants to stay at home and bully her daughter-in-law. Their faces all look as if they thought they were going to live forever. Does your face look like you think you're going to live forever? That's pretty serious, isn't it? Or does your face look like as he said, they're going to stay home and bully each other. Their faces all look as if they thought they're going to live for him. I don't want to look as if I think I'm going to live for him. Because if I do look that way, I'm going to look a little bit out of touch with reality. So that's one of the problems of truly being alone. Right? Leaving home. Leaving home means, Daddy and Mommy can't take care of me. And it means, it's up to me. I think that my precious mother, I had a precious mother. Was very blessed. I think that I've had more than one therapist who has sat with me, talking and say, do you know how lucky you are? Because when you start talking and sharing stories of your childhood. I mean, my mother never said an unkind word to me. And and we're talking, ever. Not in one unkind word. I cannot remember an unkind word out of her mouth. And she got mad at my brother because he said, "Give me a damn biscuit." We were in the 3rd grade and he'd heard some older kids say "damn," and so he tells this story, and he said, so we were sitting at breakfast, he said, "Mama, give me a damn biscuit." And she said, "What did you say, Jim?" And he said, "Oh my God." It's like he was terrified, even when she just said, "What did you say?" So, she would talk about her mother. My mother would talk about her mother when she was 94 years old. And I could tell that she had still not left home. It's just astonishing. And I'm thinking, that's astonishing. And, it was, she never pulled that one off, nor did my father. So I think that most of us probably don't have parents who ever left home. So what's your model? What's your model for leaving home if you didn't have it? I certainly didn't have it. When I was in India, I traveled for 14 months and studied yoga for 3 months or so in India. But I can remember that the only thing that kept me there from staying was that I knew that my mother longed for me to be back, and I couldn't stand that. So I finally came back, and it is what it is. So I don't know how to tell you to make this about leaving home. I don't know how to tell you to do that. Because number one, it's a profoundly psychological journey. And but I just want to offer to you the idea that that's this evening. There's a lot of things to talk about, and so we'll talk about technique and tomorrow, the blah blah blah. We'll talk about a lot of things, but I can't imagine a greater gift that you could give yourself than to really start contemplating the idea of what it means to leave home. Now, in that vein, this is another one that is just wonderful. I've read this so many times, it's boring. I mean, some of you have heard me read this 3 or 4 times. It's Mary Oliver, but it's extraordinary. And this really catches it. This really does catch it. So here we are, we're sitting in Temecula, right? And so we've gotten in cars and, physically left some sort of a home. But how many of us have done what she's talking about here? She calls this the journey. One day, you finally knew what you had to do. We all sort of know what I'm suggesting, right? What we had to do, right? One day, you finally knew what you had to do and began. though the voices around you kept shouting their bad advice, though the whole house began to tremble, and you felt the old tug at your ankles, mend my life, each voice cried. But you didn't stop. You knew what you had to do. Though the wind pried with its stiff fingers at the very foundations, though their melancholy was terrible, it was already late. Friends, it's already late. If anybody here thinks it ain't late, then we'll have a discussion later. We'll break silence and we'll have it. So she says it was already late enough, and a wild night, and the road full of fallen branches and stones. But little by little, as you left their voices behind, the stars began to burn through the sheets of clouds. And there was a new voice, which you slowly recognized as your own, that kept you company as you strode deeper and deeper into the world, determined to do the only thing that you could do, determined to say the only line that you could say. What is the life that you can say? Your children, your parents, your friends, your loved ones. I think this is an extraordinary poem. I love this. I love Mary Oliver. She's wonderful. I would marry her. She's probably dead. Or married. So there was a new voice which you slowly recognized as your own that kept you company. That's when you no longer feel alone. When you have this your own voice. And remember, you believed in your own sound, and so everything you said is still being spoken in the statue of the Buddha. It's the same thing, isn't it, right? He said, your hands moved in the gesture of welcome, your lips in the gesture of praise. You believed in your own sound, and so everything you said is still being spoken. So it's really, in a sense, the same thing. She's saying you believe in your so you have your own inner voice. Christine has, sometimes you have a voice that tells you certain things, right? And so that is your own voice. So now this is really bad. We're going from bad to worse. See, are you getting depressed, John?
Not yet.
Well,
I'm trying.
Oh wait, I've got more to do. I have many tricks in my old toolbox. So this one is I've not read this one in a long time. Maybe at a retreat. I used to read it a lot. And this is the Summarized Creed. How many people remember the Summarized Creed? Are you yawning?
Yes, I am.
Okay. See, you know what I said about being graceful with yourself? That I didn't mean that. Okay, so this is the Summarized Creed. So to some extent, this is really it's really hardcore in a way. I like it, but it's again, it's not for the faint of heart. This is the 1300s or 1400s. There's different versions of it, and but this is like the warrior. This is like the warrior's creed, right? Are there any would-be warriors here? Okay. Oh, well, that's true. It is true. So the warrior begins with this one. Right? We start right off, right? The warrior begins by saying, "I have no parents." Well, hell, I have no parents. I make heaven and earth my mother and father. I have no home. I make awareness my home. What would that be like, to make awareness your home? What would that be like? Can you imagine that? I make awareness my dwelling, my home. I have no life and death. I make the tides of breathing my life and death. And there are other translations of that. How does it say it? It's not. It's like let's say I ride on the breathing, inhalation, exhalation, right, as my life and death. That's another translation. I ride on breath. You can't go wrong this retreat if you will start getting used to looking at following the end of the inhalation and the end of your exhalation. You can't go wrong with that. It's an extraordinary way to bring the mind back to home. I have no divine power. I make honesty my divine power. Well, I'll tell you that's bad. Right? I make honesty my divine power. I have no means. I make understanding my means. I have no magic secrets. I make character my magic secret. I have no body. I make endurance my body. I have no eyes. I make the flash of lightning my eyes. I have no ears. I make sensibility my ears. I have no limbs. I make promptness my limbs. I have no strategy. I make unshadowed by thought my strategy. I have no miracles. I make right action my miracle. I have no talents. I make ready wit my talent. I have no friends. This one's hard. I have no friends. I make my mind my friend. I have no enemy. I make carelessness my enemy. I have no armor. I make benevolence and righteousness my armor. That's a good one, isn't it? Benevolence and righteousness is my armor. Okay, so there's only two more. I have no castle. I make immovable mind my castle. I have no sword. I make absence of self my sword. So the title of this poem is The Dakini Speaks, but I think this title should be Tough Love. And you've got to remember what I was just suggesting about, that we are kind of aspiring to leave home. So she begins by saying, my friends, let's grow up. Let's stop pretending we don't know the deal here. Or if we truly haven't noticed, let's wake up and notice. Look, everything that can be lost will be lost. It's simple. How could we have missed it for so long? Everything that can be lost will be lost. Everything that you can lose, you will lose, she said. And she's kind of implying that understanding that would be sort of growing up, right? Let's grieve our losses fully, like ripe human beings. But please, let's not be so shocked by them. Let's not act so betrayed. I love that, right? Let's not act so betrayed, as though life has broken her secret promise to us. Right? Isn't that true, though? The life, so life has promised us a rose garden, right? Where'd all these thorns come from? But so she says, as though life had broken her secret promise to us, impermanence is life's only promise to us. That's exactly what the Buddha said. That's exactly what he taught, right? The only thing you can really pin your bet on is impermanent. If it arises, it must vanish. It will. Can you think of something that rises that won't vanish? I can't. Mary maybe can. So he says impermanence. She says impermanence. This is Jennifer Wellwood, by the way. Impermanence is life's only promise to us, and she keeps it with ruthless impeccability. She keeps her promise of impermanence with ruthless impeccability. To a child, she seems cruel. My little boy thinks she's very cruel and doesn't like her at all. At all. But she is only wild, and her compassion exquisitely precise, brilliantly penetrating, luminous with truth. She strips away the unreal to show us the real. Now, you all know what we used to end every single Sunday with, right? Most of you know, right? The Upanishad, which is if you had to strip everything down and put one thing on my tombstone, it would probably lead us from the unreal to the real. Because I can't think of anything that doesn't cover. I don't know what it means, but So it's this woman. She said that. I thought, well, she's probably got some sense here. She said she strips away the unreal to show us the real. This is the true ride, so let's give ourselves to it. Let's stop making deals for a safe passage. There isn't one anyway. I love that, right? How many people are looking for a safe passage? I mean, and then she said, there isn't one. And she says the second part is, and the cost is too high. The cost you pay is too high. Now here's a sad, I only have 3 more sentences to go. This next one is really sad. So, Clarice, you have to get ready for this because this is really sad. We're not children anymore. How dare she say that, Mom? She couldn't be right? We're not children anymore. I'll show her. The true human adult gives everything for what cannot be lost. The true adult gives everything for what cannot be lost. You've got to get your mind around that one. That's what this retreat is about. It's giving everything for what cannot be lost. And then she says, she tops it all off with this lovely last sentence, let's dance the wild dance of no hope. Huh? Oh, it's an extraordinary form. And I Googled her immediately when I got back to, I started to say Tennessee, how sad. When I got back to wherever it is we came from, I Googled her immediately, and she's an extraordinary woman. And interestingly enough, she has integrated into her life psychotherapy and meditation. She teaches both. And we probably all would do well to go up and have a retreat with her. My friends, let's grow up. Let's stop pretending we don't know the deal here. Or if we truly haven't noticed, let's wake up and notice. Look, Everything that can be lost will be lost. It's simple. How could we have missed it for so long? Let's grieve our losses fully, like ripe human beings. All of us have stuff to grieve. Everyone in this room has stuff to grieve. She says, let's do it fully, like ripe human beings. But please, let's not be shocked by them. Let's not act so betrayed, as though life has broken her secret promise to us. I love that. I mean, you know, how many people really think life has a secret promise for them? I swear to goodness, 99%. I mean, it's amazing. But anyway, I promised myself I wouldn't do it this time. I was going to read it straight through. As though life had broken her secret promise to us. Impermanence is life's only promise to us. And she keeps it with ruthless impeccability. To a child, she seems cruel. But she is only wild, and her compassion exquisitely precise, brilliantly penetrating, luminous with truth. She strips away the unreal to show us the real. This is the true right. Let's give ourselves to it. Let's stop making deals for a safe passage. There isn't one anyway, and the cost is too high. See, if I had written that, I would say the cost is too damn high. It's the only difference, but I'm not as poetic as she is. We are not children anymore, children. We're not children anymore. The true human adult gives everything for what cannot be lost. Let's dance the wild dance of no hope. James Hillman gave a seminar. By the way, this is someone who's passed on. He wasn't permanent. He gave a seminar a few years ago, and it was quite amazing. It was on depression, but I think it's the first time I'd ever heard someone offer that. I mean, when she was talking about no hope, but he was talking about how we can cling to this idea that, you know, like in some magical way we'll end up with loving parents or love it or whatever. But in some magical way, the child part of us can cling tenaciously forever to a hope of that something from the outside will come and change us. Something will come and rescue us. Something will come and rescue me from this situation that I'm in. And I think that if you gave that up, if you give that fantasy up, that something from the outside will come and rescue you. Well, the first thing I think you would do then, you should say, there ain't anything that's going to come that's going to rescue me from this situation I'm in. So that means it's up to me to rescue myself. Well, that's not a good situation at all. I have to rescue myself. So, how do I rescue myself? Well, it's not from the outside. I've got that figured out. It isn't going to come from the outside. So where else could it come? Where would it come? And then you start looking in the right direction. You take that first step away from home, and that backward step, that step to the inside, where all answers lie. And I've told this story so many times. This was what I was going to say tomorrow night. But then, is there going to be a tomorrow night? Can we assume that there'll be a tomorrow night? Some of you do. We all do. So, this is one of my sort of kind of favorite things, but so Ajahn Chah, who's a wonderful, wonderful teacher, just wonderful, and he taught a 3-month retreat at Old Insight Meditation in Byrd. Only maybe about 3 years before I went. 2 or 3 months. I missed him by about 3 years. I missed everybody. And he was there and then he left and had a stroke. I was in India and in Bombay, and people said, you need to go. There's this guy named Nizar Gadada. You need to go and sit with him. And I said, well, I'll do that next time I come. And of course, I never went back again, and then he died. It's just like I've always waited a little bit too long. So he was leading the 3-month retreat. And Deepa Ma also did that, the wonderful, wonderful Indian teacher. She led the 3-month retreat, but he was there, and so everyone would be slow walking outside this huge mansion, which like it looks for all the world like a sanatorium. It looks like an insane asylum. It's out right in the middle of nowhere, and the country road goes by. And so then here's 50 people slow walking outside, right? And all the Lord said, "Oh my God, they're let the inmates out, right?" Everyone looking like that, we're just so ridiculous looking, And so you can imagine when people were, driving down the country road with the couple, what is this, And so here's this little monk, and he was like about 3 feet tall. He really was 3 feet tall and 3 feet wide. And he would go around and he'd say, I hope you get well. I hope you get well. I hope you get well. He'd go up to people and so that's a kind of an inside joke, meaning that the Buddha was the great physician. And so the Eastern model is getting well, and getting well means, of course, in other words, that you resolve the issue of the deluded mind. So I've told this many, many times, and so I'm going to go around tonight when you're all walking, and I'm going to say a different thing, because the Western model is not "I hope you get well." And it's really important that you understand, as I say this, that's not to say that I hope you get well. It's not unbelievably important, because it is. I mean, we've got to get well. But if he had been from the West and was going out like this and bowing to people's slow walking, he would be saying, I hope you grow up. I hope you grow up. I hope you grow up. And that would be my wish for you. That would be my deepest, deepest wish for all of you and for myself, that we continue to grow up, because that's the Western model. That's the Western model. Growing up. So you put those two together, growing up and getting well. And my goodness, you want to talk about a power-packed duo. Just think about that. Growing up and getting well. We have few models for that. Really. We have these amazing spiritually advanced people who can be like, have the mentality of a child and get into the trouble of a child. All the Tibetan monks coming over, right? Having nothing, just totally overwhelmed by, beautiful women in short skirts. I mean, it's unbelievable. And, but that doesn't, it doesn't mean that's not real. And it doesn't mean that that's not real. So tonight is, as I said, she said, my friends, let's grow up. So that's our thing tonight. And I hope we all grow up.